Second reading is Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 8. Jesus told the disciples a parable on the necessity of praying always and not losing heart. Once there was a judge in a certain city who feared no one, not even God. A woman in that city who had been widowed kept coming to the judge and saying, "Give me legal protection from my opponent." For a time, the judge refused. But finally, the judge thought, "I care little for God or people, but this woman won't leave me alone. I'd better give her the protection she seeks, or she'll keep coming and wear me out." Jesus said, "Listen to what this corrupt judge is saying. Won't God then do justice to the chosen who call out day and night? Will God delay long over them? I tell you, God will give them swift justice. But when the promised one comes, will faith be found anywhere on earth?"
Yesterday afternoon, I attended an installation service for a new pastor and her congregation. Now, as the clergy were robing and preparing for the service, I was talking to a pastoral colleague who works in community organizing, and he told me that he was exhausted, not just tired, exhausted, in that way that it is deep in your core that comes from years of swimming upstream. And he said something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "I don't even know what I'm working toward anymore. Peace feels impossible. Prosperity feels like a lie we tell rich people." I didn't have any response, and I still don't. But since yesterday afternoon and my drive back to Rochester and this morning, I've been pondering his question, and I keep coming back to this. What if we've been thinking about peace and prosperity all wrong? Such questions wake you up at 4:30 in the morning on a Sunday, and you rewrite your sermon from scratch. Beloved, when we hear the word prosperity, we think of stock portfolios and perhaps our retirement accounts, the stock market going up and down. We think sometimes of the prosperity gospel that will make you wealthy. You just believe enough and donate enough. We think of politicians and world leaders who measure prosperity by the GDP and job growth while people still sleep on the streets, tents under overpasses. If you ask me, that type of prosperity is about accumulation, more stuff, about getting more and holding on to it, about winners and losers. But what if prosperity isn't about accumulation at all? What if it's about circulation? Now, I'm not a medical expert, as you know. I'm not that type of doctor. But one thing I think I know somewhat about, and I know there's medical professionals who can correct me if I go wrong now, that health isn't measured by the amount of blood you have stored up in one part of your body. Health is measured by how well that blood circulates, reaching into every cell, carrying oxygen and nutrients, constantly moving. I think I'm somewhat right, am I? Good. Now, what if prosperity works in the same way? What if a prosperous community isn't one where a few people have accumulated massive wealth, but one where resources circulate, where everyone has enough, where gifts and needs flow back and forth, where nothing stagnates? The widows in Jesus' story isn't asking for wealth. She's asking for what is hers. She's asking for circulation to be restored in a system that has stagnated around her. She understands something crucial. She has to keep showing up to keep things moving. And then there's peace. Sometimes I feel like the entire world, Christians and other religions, and just folks in general, have domesticated the word peace into something that's just meaningless. We think about peace as the absence of conflict. Oh, how beautiful this is. We think about everyone just getting along, can't you? We think about it means being nice and calm and not rocking the boat. But that's not peace. That's just silence. And that silence is often injustice waiting to explode. As I understand it, real peace is the kind that the Hebrew prophets called shalom. It isn't about the absence of anything. It's about the presence of everything people need to flourish. It's about right relationships. It's about communities where everyone has a place and a voice. It's about circulation of dignity and respect and power for all. The widow banging at the door of the judge isn't disturbing the peace. She's seeking it. Because there's no peace where justice is denied. There's only appearance of calm, and underneath, the pressure is building. Both the widow and the psalmist are not passive. They're not waiting for peace and prosperity to descend like manna from heaven. The widow is actively, persistently, relentlessly, and stubbornly seeking justice. The psalmist is actively, persistently, relentlessly seeking understanding. They both know that peace and prosperity don't just happen. They're built, they're practiced. They require showing up over and over again. And they require us to resist the lie that peace and prosperity are scarce resources that only some people can have. That's the lie that gets many of us and others stuck. The lie that says, someone else prospers, there's less prosperity for me and for mine. The lie that says peace for one group means submission to another. The lie that says we have to choose between our own well-being and justice for others. But circulation doesn't work that way. When blood flows freely through the whole body is healthier. When resources circulate through a whole community, the whole community is stronger. When peace is built on justice rather than silence, everyone can breathe a bit easier. So what does it mean for us to seek peace and prosperity in our time? I believe it means we have to get specific. We can't just pray for peace in the abstract. We have to ask, peace for whom? Peace built upon what foundation? Peace that cost us what? The same with prosperity. We can't just hope for prosperity in general. We have to ask, prosperity measured how? Prosperity that flows where? Prosperity that includes whom? And then, again, we have to show up like the widow and build it, continually seeking and persistently looking for it. This may sound like advocating for policies that redistribute resources rather than concentrate them. You can tell it's an installation. It might look like examining our own habits of accumulation to ask what we're holding on to and the needs that circulate. It might look like speaking up when people make the mistake that silence for peace or comfort for prosperity. It looks like, it feels like, it means working for persistence, because that systems that create false peace and hoarded prosperity didn't appear overnight, my friends. They won't disappear overnight either. As I've thought about it, here's what I want to say to my exhausted colleague and to anyone else who's exhausted. Peace and prosperity aren't destinations we arrive at. They're directions we move in. They're practices we commit to. They're relationships we tend. Some days, seeking peace and prosperity looks like the continuous advocacy and bold action. But often, it looks much smaller and closer to home. It looks like choosing to spend our money at businesses who pay living wages. It looks like sharing our resources with neighbors. It looks like having conversations instead of pretending everything's just fine. It looks like building relationships across lines of difference. It looks like showing up at community meetings even when you are tired. It looks like teaching children that enough is enough and more than enough needs to move. It looks like the persistence in circulation rather than accumulation. It looks like courage to name the conflict rather than settling for a false claim. For you see, the psalmist says the understanding is sweeter than honey. I think what makes it sweet is not that it's something you get once and you possess forever. It's like something sweet that you have to experience over and over again. Perhaps it's in the season that we are in now. It's not just having apple crisp one time. It's about having it again, maybe even for breakfast or the next day at lunch. It's something about its sweetness that keeps coming to us. You have to keep tasting that sweetness, keep seeking it, keep meditating on it, keep showing up to the work of learning and unlearning. Beloved, it's the same with peace and prosperity. We don't achieve them and check them off the list. We practice them. We seek them. We keep showing up to build them, even when we're exhausted, even when progress seems impossible. Not because we're guaranteed to succeed in our lifetime, because seeking peace and prosperity, real peace, real prosperity for everyone, that seeking itself is a form of faithfulness. It's how we participate in the dream of the divine for all creation. It's how we become people we're meant to be. So, beloved, I encourage you to notice what is stagnant in your life, what's stagnant in your neighborhood, perhaps even what's stagnant here at Mountain Rise. Where is potential being stifled? Where is conflict being silenced instead of addressed? And then ask yourself, what's one small way I could help things move? What's one conversation I could have? What's one gift I could share? What's one truth I could speak? And friends, you don't have to fix everything in the world right this second. You don't even have to save the world. You just have to keep seeking. You have to keep showing up. You have to keep the circulation flowing in small ways. That's how peace gets built. That's how prosperity becomes real. That's how justice becomes a reality. And that's what it means to never lose heart.